The interesting thing is the Cubs are really well positioned to profit quite well off of this. And I think the main trade commodity that has emerged, and we've been talking about for 6 months now, 7 months, is Craig Kimbrell, and the national media is starting to finally pick up on this. As I heard Buster Olney talking about a little bit this week, and especially today on his Baseball Tonight, ESPN Baseball Tonight podcast, is Buster Olney has declared that Craig Kimbrell is the most valuable trade commodity on the market at this trade deadline, as he has performed up to his Hall of Fame resume after having a couple of subpar seasons. He is as good as he's ever been right now, and it couldn't be better timing. Essentially, every team that is in contention that would be buyers at this trade deadline would be falling over themselves to get somebody like Craig Kimbrell. There's no team that has enough bullpen help. You can always add more bullpen depth. There's literally, I think any team on the list of division, contending for the division right now would be loving Craig Kimbrell on their roster after the trade deadline. I think the front runner would actually be the Boston Red Sox, his former team, where he had massive success, and he's very comfortable with the administration there. The Red Sox are kind of a surprise this year in that they did not expect their bullpen to be as strong as it is, and I think they might even be a little nervous about if that's sustainable. And bolstering that bullpen with Craig Kimbrell would make a ton of sense. But I've also heard Oakland could be interested in Kimbrell, which makes a ton of sense to me. Houston would definitely be on the list. Toronto is another one that could be on the list as well, looking for Kimbrell. So that all works, of course, in the Cubs' favor, as if you can get a bidding war going for the best commodity on the market, the returns could be very interesting. The other factor with Kimbrell that I failed to mention yet, and a lot of people might not even know, he actually has a team option for 2022. If the Cubs wanted to bring him back and not trade him, they could have him on the roster next year. And I don't know what that would cost. I forgot to look that up, but that means he is not necessarily a rental player to any of these teams that would be vying for his services next year, or for this stretch run this year. He would be available to them in 2022 if they wanted to pick up that option. So that just boosts his value to a whole nother level, which is working out perfectly in the Cubs' favor now. So I think Kimbrell is clearly the number one tradable commodity.
And I think he's going to either the Red Sox or the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
And the reason the Blue Jays have had rotating closer there. And they definitely need, they're probably in, to your point, Red Sox didn't see this coming. So they're like, I mean, anyone, to your point, anyone's in game Shiv, the White Sox could put a package together, him and Liam Hendricks at the end of the game, like that's just like you can.
Well, we were talking about that 2 weeks ago with A-hole All-Stars. If we could have both of them in the back of the bullpen, holy fuck.
Yeah, but I don't see that happening. But I think like you're going to get, it's going to be I think it's really going to come down to an AL East bidding war for Kimbrell, and I think also that makes him comfortable too because he's familiar with, to your point about going back to the Red Sox, he's super familiar there, but he's just familiar with that area, navigating that division, and I think he would be cool with that. Does he have any sort of trade clause or anything?
I don't think he does, but I don't think he's necessarily interested in sticking around with the Cubs for the rest of the year either. So
I mean, honestly, we need to keep talking about this. I think the Cubs are in a position to kind of do exactly what the White Sox did that year when they started to trade off like Sale and Quintana and that, and flip this quickly.
Yeah.
You've got Bryant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bryant is a beast when he's away from Wrigley. his OPS away is 933. His OPS at home is 761. They have played
Mm,
40 home games, 39 away games, though they're playing the 41st home game right now. But
okay.
he rakes away from that
Yeah.
park. And everyone, this is not, I'm not pulling out hidden stats. The people doing the reviews are looking at this. He will rake for some team. He does not hit as good in Wrigley. And a lot of it has to do with wind blowing in a lot there. But his numbers away are huge. So, I mean, I think he's the question the Cubs have to ask themselves is who do you want to build around?
Who's going to be left is
Right.
the
Who do you want?
question.
Do you want to build around Contreras, or can you trade? Is Contreras tradable? Baez
Hmm?
also would bring back a
Yeah.
huge return. The only one I don't, the only
I'm a little
person,
skeptical. I'm gonna push back a little bit there on that. Position players haven't traditionally, or at least recently, gotten that much back, especially rental players. The way that relievers do, which
no,
is interesting.
that's true. I don't think though, to your point, and I'll agree with you. I don't think they'll bring back as much as Kimbrel, or even if they wanted to send a team friendly contract of the professor away to get a haul.
Well, I
That
think the professor's locked in at a nice amount of money for several years to come. So I don't see him getting traded. I do see like stellar more bullpen help. Like Andrew Chafin could easily get traded for not maybe nearly the haul that Kimbrough would bring, but I think Chafin's probably gone. I think your point about Bryant is well taken because he's a MVP candidate when he's healthy, and like you said, he performs on the road. I think he's a target of the Mets, and I've heard that in a lot of places, and might even be able to. The Cubs might even be able to get a bidding war going with the Blue Jays, who would be interested in him as well. There's been speculation about that, so I think that's where position wise, I think Bryant would be the would get the most returns of anyone on the roster. You brought up Contreras, and that's an interesting one because he's under contract through next year, and it would be what's interesting is you've got him through next year, but what's the team going to look like next year? Would you want to? Would the Cubs focus? A lot of people want to focus on signing Contreras to a long term deal, but that means he would want to stay in Chicago too. And would he want to stay in Chicago if Rizzo is gone, if Brian is gone, if Baez is gone, if there's nothing here, if he's the only one left? I don't think he'd be interested in that. I think so. And I wonder if the Cubs are looking at that calculus as well and saying, what if we traded him right now with an extra year left? I think his value would be higher right now than it would be trying to do the same thing a year from now. So I guess I don't really know where he would go. I mean, the first thing that popped in my head when Grandal got injured was that they should trade with the White Sox, of course, which would be an interesting thing. But you've got Grandal coming back possibly this year, and he's still under contract for what, 2 more years after
yeah
this. So
yeah.
you've got Zach Collins. Of course, he could be traded as he's been rumored to be the target of several entities. So I don't know. That was the first ridiculous one that popped in my head. But I think Contreras could be number 2 on position players value list of the Cubs behind Bryant. Rizzo, I think, would make perfect sense going to the New York Yankees, lefty out there with their short porch in right field. But he's
I don't think
chronically
he's gonna.
injured. He's on the wrong side of 30. I don't think
Yeah, he's not. The return's not going to be. It's
it's not
almost
there.
no, it's not there. That's why. That's why the Cubs gave him a good contract for what
Mm-hmm.
he's been producing.
And we
I
talked
mean,
about that months ago.
he's shooting for 20 home runs right now for the year. 20
Yeah.
with like 66 RBIs, maybe. I mean, you're not. These are not numbers that are going to get you a return, a good return.
Like I said, he's on the wrong side of 30, so you don't see a
Yeah,
reason to believe that's gonna change trajectory. He's on a downward trend. I don't want to rip on the guy, but that's just the facts. So I just don't. If they do trade him, I think there's potential that he could still be traded, but the return for him would not be what a lot of Cubs fans would be assuming or hoping. So that's kind of my hierarchy of Cubs value trade away commodities on the trade market. So